Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. We have a Seminole and a Gator together, trying to put aside their differences and bring you the fantastic world of college football. Thank you for joining us on this ride of hype, hope, and hilarity. My name is Brandon, and I'm joined by Chris. How are you feeling about today's show, my good friend?
I'm pretty good. Were you chuckling through that whole intro?
I'm just so excited. This is a good time of
Okay.
year. I'm feeling the joy.
I heard a little bit of, I guess, twinkle in your
Yeah,
voice there.
yeah.
No, I'm excited too. It's like I said this before. It's a bittersweet time, but I like it. It's pretty cool to see college football and NFL collide and meet together. And you get people who are just NFL fans, people who are just college, coming together for those couple of nights. And it's pretty interesting. And the draft means a lot to me and especially means a lot to us because that is where we met is during the draft or watching the draft. We'll get into that another time, but
Yeah.
it's a special time for us for sure.
I absolutely agree, and it is a great segue between college and NFL. In fact, it's the only one. And that you can say so much about NFL teams getting free agents, getting players from other squads, getting their own units from practice facilities, whatever it may be. But nothing will replace the hype and the unknown element of the draft. And that's probably
Yeah,
what makes it so exciting is you don't know if this guy is going to make your franchise. You
right.
don't know if the risk is going to pay off, but you're willing to take it because maybe in the instance of Cleveland Browns, you're so desperate you don't have a choice.
Yeah. It stinks when the draft started. I remember one announcer was like, "Yeah, they picked the number one overall last year, and they're picking number one overall this year. They really hope to not do this again next year."
Exactly.
Yeah,
Man. So I figure the best way to ease us into the talk of the NFL draft from 2018 is just kind of do maybe a discussion on the format of how it works, talk about the overall draft as it is, the changes that have been made. What were your thoughts about it being in Dallas and how it's moved a lot? I guess we can start off on the location of it first.
yeah. I really like the idea of them moving. Not at first, I wasn't a big fan, but I think it just made sense to. And now when you see them at Dallas in that stadium, it was just okay. This is kind of cool. The whole spectacle of it. I liked it.
Yeah, it was good. They had it looked like a setup outside the arena. They had it inside as well.
Right.
You know, when they had it in Philadelphia, they had it on the Rocky Steps.
Yeah,
That's
that's right.
obviously iconic and sports fitting. And you kind of move it away from the Jets old
Right.
facility, which kind of like is a home field advantage, if you will, if there's any way
Yeah.
to describe that. So I like it too. I was a big fan of that. It gets all of the teams a chance to host another NFL event outside of just a regular season game.
Yeah, or in not every city and stadium is built to host a Super Bowl. So this is good for those cities. They can get at least that atmosphere going around them.
Good point. Good point. So thoughts on the format, Chris? And you and I were talking a little bit before. You might even have a story to share about this. What do you think about the way, the draft goes? The guys that decide to show up and hope to be drafted in person. You can maybe even sprinkle in the Tom Brady story, which everyone likes to mention when he was in the sixth draft and walked out of the room. But you can avoid that if you want. What are some of your thoughts just on the format itself?
I really am not a big fan of how they split it up into like 3 days, because the way I followed it has changed big time as I've gotten older and just more important things have come up. But I really was a big fan of it was like 2 days or one night and two. I don't know. It was just like a one day really. I remember sitting around just following it all day. And you take a nap, you go get some food, come back and just watch it all day. And now it's just I just I got into the first round and watched all the first round, but the next day I'm like you asked me to come back and watch it again for a second day,
Right.
and then you're gonna ask me to come back again and watch for a third day. I don't know, I lost interest, and that's the way it's been the last handful of years. I'll watch the first round, but then now with smartphones, you can just follow the rest of the rounds no matter where you're at. You don't have to be at the TV. So I just I still like it, still enjoy it, still follow it, but the way I follow it's been different. I think a lot of it is due to that format.
I think I mostly agree, especially with the timing of the first round. Of course, that's the most suspense, and you want to see what each player decides to grab first
Yeah.
and go from there. But it tended to drag on, and I don't know the official marks of how long you have, but I'm guessing it was around 20 minutes. You have
I think it was like 10 minutes.
10, okay.
I remember that it was like 10 minutes, but still.
Felt like 20. Felt like longer. Because
yeah, it feels like you're right.
After a pick, you're just sitting around waiting, and you're like, okay, well, somebody made a move. Well, there is something interesting. Let's wait another 4 minutes to find out.
Yeah.
And that may sound a little millennial of me, and trust me, generally I'm not, because I'm willing to wait things out. But when the draft doesn't start till 8:15 on the East Coast for a lot of people, and you're waiting for your one school to draft that one guy,
yeah,
it can seem like an eternity, and you're pushing your bedtime to get that pick in. So I totally agree with you. Got my interest the first night until generally the guy I'm waiting to see drafted goes. After that, I'm pretty much checked out, and then I even did exactly what you said. At the next rounds after that, I just followed on my phone. Just
and it used to not be that way. Partly because I had less things to worry about, and partly because you couldn't follow it on your phone. But it just seemed like a whole day event that I just really looked forward to. But now I'm just kind of like, I can check my phone whenever I get a free minute.
Exactly.
I still follow it. I still scroll through it. I still get excited. But just it's changed for sure. And you're right. The thing that really bugged me was every time they said the pick is in. Well, we're not gonna tell you about it until another 5 more minutes, but the pick is in, and that really drug it out big time.
Yes, indeed, and I think it's even being carried across from multiple platforms now. Back to the idea of multiply accessible, no matter where you are: phone, app, website, everything. NFL Network was carrying the draft, and I think they even had their own separate crew to bring it in. Maybe that's one of the guilty parties as to why it takes so long. Got to get the extra streaming time in. Not sure.
Yeah.
But it certainly does make it a little more tasking, especially for us on the East Coast.
Yeah. But I still thoroughly enjoyed, especially the first round, though, watching it and seeing the drama and seeing where people will fall. And these are some big decisions because a lot of money hinges on the choices you make, not just who you're going to pay, but are they going to perform? Are they going to make your franchise better or worse? It's a pretty serious and intense stuff they're going through.
Absolutely. My biggest concern was, are you going to waste that iron-on jersey you were making in the back room?
Yeah.
Certainly don't want to make sure you waste that. That's a big cost there.
Right.
After that, secondarily, then we're going to worry about the multi-figure salary.
Right.
I was trying to figure out how that worked. They finally showed a little glimpse of that, by the way. They basically, I'm sure every team has their own different scenarios played out, so they have like a list of 5 backup picks in case the guy they want goes ahead of that. But yeah, they have the names and they have the jerseys ready to go, and they press it on and they bring it right out to that front podium of Goodell.
Maybe that's why it takes so long.
Yeah, there you go.
And I wonder, like, some guys have these crazy hairdos. I'm like, how are they going to fit that head on there? But somehow they make it work too.
Yes, they do.
It's impressive. I'd like to just for one round just to sit in the back and just see all the moving parts.
Absolutely. The sad part of sitting back there, if you were to choose to do that, would be see the guys that continually don't get picked and they're still waiting.
Yeah,
but
I do feel bad for them.
Yes, indeed. But, a lot of the guys have a really good awareness of where they're probably going to be picked, so they also are taking a chance, and I think they realize that too.
Yeah, right.
I think mostly of Geno Smith a few years back, West Virginia quarterback. He sat around, didn't even get picked their first day. So he waited till day 2 before he was finally picked by the Jets. You know, that would be a scenario I point to and I'm like, man, that was probably very uncomfortable.
Yeah, no joke. No joke. And it just to, I mean, he already feels awful, but to know that everyone is watching you feel awful. Ugh.
Indeed. But then you would be able to experience all of the emotion and, you know, getting that phone call from the team.
Yeah. It just goes away.
Exciting too, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good recap of the format, at least as far as we know as college football fans anyway. I don't know if we can dive into it much further, to be completely honest. So any impressions of the overall draft, like any shocks from any players outside of our schools or outside of the state that you're like, wow, they went too soon or too late, or any surprises that really grabbed your attention?
I don't know about surprises. One thing I was watching closely was just see where the quarterbacks were going, and because there's a lot of quarterbacks that were first round talent, and just to see where they land and end up. I think we had like 5 or 6 in the first round or something like that. It was pretty cool just to see. It's just interesting. No quarterback really stuck out to me, so I really didn't know who I would have picked if I was the Browns. I think each of them have qualities, and each of them have things that go against them, but none of them really stuck out to me. But it's so interesting to see where they would fall.
Yeah, I think I agree. I still have my issues with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
and I'm not blowing any surprises here that he went first overall to the Browns. But spoiler alert, too late after the fact if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the draft yet. I think I'm a little worried about the personality issues, and I think most mature Cleveland and Oklahoma fans will probably admit to some of the antics that were uncolorful or in distaste.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm hoping, for the Browns' sake, that we're not seeing a repeat of another Heisman winner a few years ago, Texas A&M. I really am hoping that's not the case.
Yeah. But no other quarterback really was, I don't know, like, Sam Darnold, like, is he really that much better? Josh Allen, like,
and that's
Rosen.
A good point. You know, I don't know that there really was. Sam Darnold had a lot of ball control issues, and even in a pretty weak Pac-12, he still lost 2 and 3 games a year.
Yeah.
To some teams he probably shouldn't have. Josh Rosen and Josh Allen had good form, but Allen played in Wyoming.
Right.
You know, how good is the talent there? We all know that it's not. So you've got a lot to build on, and you're taking somewhat of a chance. So you're absolutely right. You really could have taken any of those top 3 quarterbacks and justified it pretty easily.
Yeah. I think it's fairly equal. I do like that player Saquon Barkley out of Penn State. I think the Giants got a good pick, good help for Eli.
Yeah, you know, I noticed maybe even the Patriots down the line started picking running backs to back up a quarterback that's aging a little bit, just to give him a little more ease in the pocket, draw the pressure off him a bit, and that's good. Running backs are hard to find. You know, I think with them it's cyclical. The old adage, like, you know, once he's 30, he's old.
Yeah.
It tends to be somewhat true unless you have some rare exceptions. And I think the bigger thing in the last at least 5 years was I can just draft a free agent running back and be okay. So it was good to see that a team took a risk that high in the draft with a running back. I was very pleased with that.
But the Patriots go through running backs like it's their job, though. So I mean, I was kind of shocked that they took one that high, because they usually just like, oh, just whoever's not working this week, you'll be our running back.
That's a good point.
Usually, what the fact that they used a draft pick that high for him is kind of interesting.
That's true, and I mean, we could say the same about the wide receivers too. You're like, he went to what college again?
Yeah, right.
So they can kind of just plug in whoever they want, but I don't know if they're not preparing more for the future at this point beyond Tom Brady. So maybe something to that. We'll see. So yeah, a lot of quarterbacks, and I think to add to your thought about the QBs in the first round, I think there were 5 drafted,
Yeah, there's five. There was five. Yeah.
which they were saying was a really high number, a lot higher than usual, and including 2 Heisman winners. Lamar Jackson went at the last pick of the first round to the Ravens, and
Yeah.
then Baker Mayfield first round to the Browns.
I totally forgot that he was in this draft because they were talking about the other ones so much, and I forgot he was even in this draft.
How about that? And I mean, it's crazy to think. I mean, he played in clearly such a mediocre team and division, and I'm putting Florida State in that too. This season, that it was easy to forget.
Yeah.
You know, even though he was invited to New York as a Heisman finalist, the numbers were honestly easily forgettable this season, but mostly because he was playing such a less than mediocre defense, and so he was having to score so much, and all that gets overlooked. But yeah, sure enough, he had good numbers. I have my questions about his height. I still don't know how much the NFL offensive system will have success with a running quarterback like that, with the ability to break down, because he's just not going to have that kind of breakaway speed against defensive linemen. So, you know, it's an interesting pick. I hope the best for him. I really do. I have serious questions on whether or not he'll succeed there.
Do you think they might put him in a different position? Kind of like a Terrell Pryor situation?
That could work. Yeah, I've seen a lot of players, though, kind of turn down that idea.
Yeah.
They're like, I'd rather be a quarterback. That's all I've ever been. If he's willing to at least try that, you know, he could be an Antoine Randall L. Well, not quite that good. But
Yeah.
at least, I mean, go in there with that mindset and say, you know,
Right.
I was this all-star quarterback, but I could be a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I could be where you need me to be. And, yeah, you may have a successful career without being a QB at all.
Yeah. I just hope that he's at least open to it.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about a little about the format, the overall draft itself. Let's go ahead and dive into our schools. That's what our fans are here for, after all. So I'll defer to you, Chris, as usual. I'll let you go first. Talk to me about the Gators, where they went in the draft, maybe some surprises or non-surprises, and what you thought about the teams they're going to be going to after all.
I was kind of shocked that we had a first round pick because I did not think we were going to. And that was Taven Bryan, D tackle, and he went to the Jags, pick 29. And honestly, like I knew he was talented and I knew he was a good player for us, but he was very inconsistent at Florida. He had games where he would just take over and dominate, whether it was sacks or just disrupting it and allowing lanes for linebackers. But then there were games that the announcers wouldn't call his name, and I knew he was good. But the last few days prior, leading up to the draft, people were saying, "Oh, he might go first." I was like, "No, he's not gonna go first round." And sure enough, he did. So, kind of shocked me on that. And people were saying that he's got like talent, like J.J. Watt talent, just can't put it together. And I'm not saying he's J.J. Watt, but he's got that ability. But he just didn't show up a lot of games.
Okay.
But they said if you can corral him and you can channel that and get him to be consistent, he's a first round talent. So kind of shocked me, but I'm excited, and that made it 6 straight years that a Gator was taken in the first round.
Wow.
Keeping the streak alive, and actually, I believe all 6 have been defensive players.
Okay.
And I believe, no, we had a offensive tackle. That's right, but the rest have been defensive players. And so that's kind of I didn't realize that until I was doing some research. But we had 5 overall. We had Duke Dawson, a cornerback, go in the second round, and I, again, did think he was second-round talent. So I'm kind of shocked there. He pretty decent at, like, I would say the nickel spot would be good for him.
Okay.
Kind of undersized for a corner. and he got beat a lot and missed some tackles a lot, but then he also would make some great plays. And um, so obviously they see something in him that I didn't see. Kind of shocked a little bit about that. I'm excited though. And then in round 4, we had Antonio Callaway, our receiver. Now, this guy, he's going to come up in a few of my lists down the road when we rank stuff. But has first round talent
Okay.
for sure. But his off the field stuff is just laughable. It's just one marijuana charge after another.
Okay.
And he was one of those guys that were suspended for the whole season last year prior to the season.
Oh, that's right.
The credit card stuff, and he just could not seem to get out of trouble. But like on the field, he was electric. He was electric.
Even as a non-Florida fan, that's what I remember him for. Actually, more of the positive, more of the on-the-field presence and
Right.
the talent there. So, not knowing a lot of these guys, that was the biggest surprise to me, at least from the Gator perspective.
Yeah, and he went to the Browns. They like to pick those risky guys. And he could be a steal. He could easily be a steal in this draft. But I'm like, just his track record. You're going to give him money and freedom. I'm a little worried for him.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that guys like that, the NFL, I think the Cowboys even implemented this a few years ago with Pac-Man Jones. Give them the freedom, but also give them a team to be accountable to.
Yeah.
Give them a halo of people to be there. Just some advice, just some moral support. If the Browns do it right, they will give players like him and other players with similar backgrounds the same chance, and hope they can figure it out on their own.
Yeah. So he could definitely be a steal. Talented as all get out, though. And then in round 5, we had our punter, Johnny Townsend. Now, some were saying he's one of, if not the greatest punter in Florida history. And I think that's great, and I think he's up there. But I don't think you ever should draft a punter. Like, I just in the 5th round, like I don't see it. The Raiders, he was drafted by the Raiders, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think if you're going to take a punter, go to the 7th round. But he's talented. He was talented. Had a leg on him. And then we had another guy in round 6, Marcel Harris, another D-back. Played some safety to the 49ers. And he was one of those guys that he was really, really good on the field, but he had so many injuries that it was inconsistent. So I was surprised that he even got drafted.
Wow.
So a lot of shock on who was drafted and where they ended up for the Gators. And then we had a few guys that weren't drafted. Most notably, probably our kicker, Eddie Pinheiro. He got signed, and but everyone else got signs by other teams too. But we had 5. I was kind of shocked who got drafted. I thought Eddie would have been drafted, maybe late, and where they landed just a lot higher than I thought. Honestly.
Okay. Yeah,
maybe that's coming off, the Gator fan in me coming off a 4-7 season. Very cynical, but I was kind of shocked where they landed.
Yeah, I mean, I've never doubted the Gators can support NFL talent, and so I'm glad to see the guys are still going. By the way, can you repronounce the kicker's last name? I want to hear it from you one more time.
Pinheiro.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's pretty close.
I don't know if I'm right or not. There's some kind of little.
It's a tilde.
That's
squiggly line above the end. Yeah, you had it.
Yeah, exactly. The trick is you just say it real fast, and hopefully no one catches on.
Yeah, good luck finding how to do that on your keyboard too. I never quite figured that one out.
Got nothing.
I just print out and write it above. But no, I mentioned the kicker for a reason, because you were talking about not drafting a punter or a kicker, and generally, I would say 99% of the time, that's a good rule. You just generally don't want to do that. The few times it has worked out, I want to plug Florida State a little bit here. Sebastian Janikowski, lifetime kicker, he was drafted. And then I'll plug another Florida State guy that didn't work out, and that's Roberto Aguayo. Personally, one of my favorite Seminoles ever for a lot of reasons, and it didn't work out for him. I think he was drafted really high, second or third round, and he had really one on and off season with the Bucks, and in the off season he just didn't make the cut. And they were very honest. They said, you got to make your kicks over 40 yards.
Right.
I don't know the standard for a punter. I would assume hang time and distance are factors there.
Right. Right.
It's kind of sad to know that the NFL and college have moved away. I remember the 90s. They used to post punter stats when they were about to kick, and they don't do that anymore. It used to be like average hang time, how many times pin inside the 20, average kick, average yards allowed on a return, and they don't really focus on that anymore, unfortunately. Which is sad, because that was really the linchpin of a lot of offensive defensive schemes. That's Jim Tressel, the sweater vest.
Yeah.
He famously said one time, the most important play of the game is the punt.
Really?
Absolutely. It means a lot for field position, for controlling the clock, for just a lot of other factors. It can also mean moral victories if you force a team to punt, but it can kill you on a bad punt. We've seen, at least in Florida State's history, a lot of bad punt returners who can't field it or make bad decisions, and the punt's huge. So I certainly don't undervalue that at all. I think taking a punter sometimes can really benefit your team.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna waste a draft pick on.
Yeah,
I agree that it's important, and field position is really important, but fifth round, I don't know, man. I don't.
It feels like
I can maybe agree with a kicker because they actually put points on the board, but a punter, I don't know. I get that they're valuable. I totally get they're valuable, but I don't know about a fifth round pick on one.
It's hard, and you're certainly going to see it's an all-in kind of move. You're like, this is going to make a lot of sense, or somebody's getting fired in the recruiting room. That's just how this is going to go. Something like that. But
we had a punter. Oh man, I think it was. I believe it was Shane Edge, and he was in one of the championship games against Alabama, and it was a close game, and he called his own fake, and he took off, and he got the first down, like apparently, and we ended up winning the game. And they interviewed him, and no joke, he said, sometimes the punter just has to take over the game. And I'm like, what? In what world? This guy was so cocky. His nickname was, Chris Berman gave him the nickname, Shane, don't push me over the edge.
I was about to say that is a really cool name to be the guy that have done that.
Yeah.
Man, Edge.
Sometimes punters has to take over the game.
Punter.
Like, no, they don't. The punters has to kick the ball.
Okay.
All they have to do.
He just felt it, He had the spirit, if you will.
Yes.
Wow. I have another really weird punter stat before we move on. Just got to throw it in there with the don't
we have
push me over
spent way
the edge.
too much time on a punter.
On punters. They've gotten a whole lot of glory on this one.
Way too much.
It was 2008. Florida State's playing Boston College. And we are struggling. It is a terrible game on offense. We can't get anything done, especially in the run game. So a punter, not calling his own number and told to do so by the coach, executes a fake. And he rushes for about 37 yards. It's like, wow, that changes momentum. He was our leading rusher for that game.
Cheer.
It was bad. It was real bad. And that was just a season to forget, a lot of it. But he had his moment in glory, just like Mr. Edge did.
Yeah.
So, good kudos to both of these punters and for your guy for getting drafted. I'm sorry, what was his name again?
Shane, don't push me over the edge. Oh, the guy who got drafted?
No. I wanted to hear that one again. So
okay.
That's a good form.
Anytime. You call me up. Whenever. I'll just repeat that name.
Awesome. Well, thanks for breaking down the Gators, and all the punters listening. Hey, this is your episode. Please tune in.
Yeah. And I think that was the first time since, I believe, 86 that a punter from Florida was drafted.
That's impressive.
Yeah, long time. We've had some pretty good punters since then, too. Like, really good punters.
Yeah, and it's certainly a position that doesn't lend itself to injury too often. So if you get a good one, you could have him for life. He could be there 12,
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah.
All right.
True.
So kudos. Any other notes about the other Florida guys drafted?
No, it's. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Duke Dawson. Second round went to the Patriots, so I think he's going to fit into their system real well. They like to rotate people in, and I'm excited for him. I don't know, second round. I just didn't see it.
So a lot of guys, a little surprising. I don't feel like from the outside looking in, not too much of a shock. I've told you before, as a Florida State fan, I love Florida secondary. If I was a Florida fan, I hate to face them, but it's not a surprise to me that Florida continues to put out high-level NFL talent. Not at all.
Yeah. Last year we had three of our D-backs in the second round go, and then one this year go, and then back in 2016 we had two first-round defensive backs. So we've been cranking them out.
Awesome. No surprise here. And that's the kind of defense Florida's always touted, and probably to the frustration of some Gator fans has been the only highlight of the wins anyway. I don't think that's frustrating to say that.
No joke.
Awesome. Well, let me dive into Florida State real quick. We had 6 overall picks this season. The one guy we were championing and hoping to get him drafted as high as possible is Derwin James. He was a defensive back. He missed a lot of 2016 with injury, and I think that season would have played out quite differently had he been healthy. But he was full force this year. He got drafted 17th overall by the Chargers. You had mentioned sort of the streak Florida was building with draft picks. Here's the one that I was shocked to know. Florida State has drafted 31 defensive backs in the last 30 years of the NFL. Which that's essentially one a year.
Wow. Yeah.
When Derwin James was interviewed, he was interviewed by none other than Deion Sanders, another D-back from Florida State. And the last question he asked him is, "What university did you go to, my son?"
Oh,
and so the joke was DBU,
right,
Defensive Back University. Deion Sanders has been a great ambassador for Florida State, and he's placed his loyalties in the right spots. He hasn't overdone it, but it was kind of cool to get that shout out.
Usually it's what we usually hear is LSU claiming to be DBU. That's our biggest,
really,
I guess,
out of the SEC?
Defensive back. Yeah. I mean, Alabama could easily make a case, but that's just what Gator fans have been hearing a lot is from LSU, and they put out a lot of good people, so I get it.
Yeah, and you would think that, at least from LSU, for a quick thought on that, just would turn out a little more success in the SEC for the amount of NFL talent they've had.
Yeah.
I know we see them as a perennial, they're one of the top 3 teams in the SEC West, but I haven't seen a lot of payoff from that, to be completely honest.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, but no doubt LSU has drafted a lot of guys. And to see that many defensive backs and guys from the secondary go in the NFL means that we're still doing a lot of things right. And so very happy about that. Another guy we had drafted next was Derek Nadi. Confusing on the spelling. He has 2 N's, N-N-A-D-I. So it is pronounced Nadi.
Okay.
He was drafted by the Chiefs in 3rd round, 75th overall. It was a little bit of a shock for me to see that long of a gap between Knowles being drafted, but a lot of people would have also said Derwin James should have gone higher. And I think that probably could be justified. My thought going into the draft, though, was more of teams are going to draft by need. And the teams that have the higher picks didn't have a whole lot of need for defensive backs. So I wasn't expecting him to go much higher. I was like, to me, it fits about right. I could see where people would think he would have gone in the top 10 because he's that kind of talent. I think the knee injury and being out an entire season can be somewhat of a concern, but with the way physical science and all of the surgeries have come these kind of days, I don't think that kind of stuff will hamper you much longer than it should.
Now, was he a corner or safety or both?
That's a great question. The The answer is yes.
Okay.
We actually invented a position for him called the star.
Star.
So he could play both at the same time. It was a hybrid of the corner and the safety.
Oh, okay.
So that was the benefit of having a guy with that kind of athleticism, is he could cover basically zone-ish for corner and safety.
Okay.
That is why, just like, is it Callaway, the wide receiver from Florida? Derwin James could be a steal at the 17th pick. He could reshape the Chargers defense.
Gotcha.
Because of his athleticism. But he's listed as a defensive back.
Okay.
Yep.
Just general. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Going on. Rick Leonard. He was our third pick. He was in the 4th round of the Saints, offensive tackle. You know, it's hard to have stats for these kind of guys other than pancake.
He was big.
Yeah.
That's his stat.
6'7", 300. Okay, good. You're good to go.
Yeah, right.
And also of note, of course, he blocked for Dalvin Cook and Cam Akers, our running back now. So successful running seasons for both of those guys.
Right.
We had Josh Sweat that went next. We had Ryan Izzo, a tight end. This is kind of a new thing for Florida State. We did have Nick O'Leary drafted the Bills a few years back.
Right.
To have tight ends go is a little more rare.
Now, I thought Izzo would be a higher pick, honestly.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I was...
The games I saw, he did. He just seemed like I don't know, just like he'd fall higher, but...
Fall higher, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could... He's okay. That talented. He can fall higher.
Yeah, fall higher. Now, when I grew up in Texas, we would raise the windows down.
Windows, okay.
Raise the windows down. Okay, raise down. Gotcha. Okay, you get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised there, mainly because of the gaps in which these guys are being drafted. You have high first, and then you have like 3rd, and then 4th, and now Izzo drops to the 7th after Sweat. He goes like 250th overall, and I really liked Izzo. You know, that's going to be a little bit of a loss. I've talked previously in our other episodes about Jimbo's system and using the tight end, not seeing a lot of use for it. Mm-hmm. Jameis Winston had other ideas with Nick O'Leary, which is why his draft stock went so high.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you see a lot of more resonance, more success with the tight ends now, barring injury, and they're used more of as a slot, as the end. They have a lot more uses in the NFL than they used to.
Right.
So yeah, I think I can agree that maybe the 7th round was a little low for him. He did go to the Patriots, so we'll see what he learns from the other tight end they have.
Who's that guy? I've never heard of him before.
I think he's on the cover of Madden.
If only there was 8 commercials that I saw him in.
He did a Spanish interview one time on ESPN Deportes, and Hola, yo soy Roberto. The guy asked a question in Spanish, then translate English. He goes, "Yo soy fiesta." I am party.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it fits.
Yeah. I gotta make fun of him a little bit because when he's healthy, he's the best tight end in the NFL. I can't even argue that.
Right.
So props to Gronk. So hopefully Izzo learns some techniques from him. That'd be great. And last guy we had drafted was Auden Tate, who was a wide receiver. He went to the Bengals. I'm not so high on him. Go ahead.
Did you say Bengals or Bengals?
Bengals.
I think you threw an I in there.
Did I?
But
okay.
I think so. I liked it.
How is it actually pronounced?
I think it's Bengals.
Bengals.
But I think I think you said Bengals. I don't know. Maybe getting excited. Who knows? Maybe I'm way off.
So,
I don't know.
Like, bagels with an N? Bengals?
Bengals.
I don't care enough about them to watch, so I've never even put effort into pronouncing it.
True. Very true. You make a good point. Win some ball games and I'll pronounce your team right.
Andy Dalton, woohoo. That's about all I know.
Right.
I'll follow Auden Tate. You know, maybe that's why I was getting confused, is Auden Tate, Bengal. Okay, anyway. You and I have talked about the struggle Florida State has had with wide receiver, and I don't think that's any secret to anybody. So I was actually kind of surprised Tate was drafted at all. And he was drafted so late, it kind of made sense.
He's almost He's almost Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant. I love that term.
He's like 4 picks away from being Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah. So, yeah, we had a pretty good mix this year. You know, our highest people go on defense, which keeps the trend going. Florida State producing that defensive talent. We had some guys go late. Some of the other guys of note, I think it's a total of 7 that were drafted as free agents. Notably, to me, Trey Marshall. He was a safety. He went to the Broncos. In my opinion, he was better than Auden Tate and should have been drafted in the 7th round, but didn't happen. Matthew Thomas, he was a linebacker, went to the Steelers. That's been a notably weak spot for Florida State, so that's an area we need to rebuild pretty heavily since he's gone. Tavares McFadden, also another one I was surprised wasn't drafted. Went to the 49ers really late. That one kind of shocked me. That was took me back a bit. And Ermin Lane, who was a wide receiver. Ermin Lane actually converted. He was a defensive back up until his last 2 seasons at Florida State and then converted to wide receiver.
Right.
So, yeah, just some other guys of note there. So, yeah, I noticed your thoughts. Anything else to add with the Florida State guys? I mean, you had a pretty good reaction to McFadden not going higher. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I figure he would get drafted especially over, what's his name, Auden?
Yeah, on tape.
Yeah, I figure if anyone's going to get drafted, it would be him because I've heard his name a lot in the games. So a little bit shocked about that.
Yep. 2016, McFadden led the NCAA or tied for the lead in interceptions. And I think that's probably why most people were expecting it. But the way our defense ran the following season, at least what I was reading, I was like, I'm not going to expect as many. I think he had 8. 2016, that's high. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But he had like 1 return yard out of those 8. So he basically went right down or went out of bounds as soon as he caught them. So not the kind of guy that would make a play with it after he caught it, but he would certainly be there in the right position.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. Awesome. Also, if it's okay, Chris, I noticed another school in Florida had a lot of guys drafted, and I feel like they deserved a little bit of attention, maybe just a couple minutes worth, and that's the University of Central Florida.
Yeah, give them some love.
Absolutely.
Why not?
Undefeated season, good for them. I think that if you're going to start competing with the other Florida schools, and I don't say that lightly because Florida, Florida State, and Miami are the big 3 for a reason, you're going to need to start putting guys in the NFL. And I think UCF took a really good step toward doing that this year.
Right.
They actually had four guys drafted. One in the first round, Mike Hughes. 30th overall. He went to the Minnesota Vikings. Are you familiar with any of this guy's story?
I only know the guy with the one hand. I know him. I really don't know too much about Hughes.
Excellent. Well, I'll get to Shaquem Griffin. That's the guy you're referring to.
That's right. Shaquem.
Shaquem, yes. Mike Hughes, actually, as my unnamed source will have told me, was actually a transfer from USC. Someone that played in a very premier program, wasn't getting a playing time, transferred to play with Frost his senior season, and was a huge difference maker. Mostly played on special teams as a returner, but also played a lot of corner.
Oh, isn't he the guy who returned that kick against USF?
That's the one.
That like crazy back and forth game.
Absolutely,
that was
him.
Pretty clutch. Pretty clutch.
I agree, and he was right position, right time. And the Vikings saw that potential and seized it. So good for him to have the wherewithal to transfer schools, to get that playing time and get the recognition he might not have had out in Southern California. We also had Traquan Smith. Looking up this guy's stats, he was drafted 3rd round, 91st overall as a wide receiver. He was probably if you had to rank the wide receivers in UCF history, between 4 and 6. That's how good and dangerous this guy was.
Okay.
He had a lot of numbers, a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. And so, good luck to him and the Big Easy, Drew Brees.
All right.
Jordan Akins, another guy. He had a lot of success, surprisingly, in baseball before he started playing football. Got drafted as a tight end for the Texans. So he'll be playing with J.J. Watt on the other side. So good luck to him. He actually had an injury the year that they went winless and rebounded very well, as a lot of players did after Frost came in. But yes, Shaquem Griffin, that's the guy you're referring to.
Yeah.
And if you were to ask him, he would not want to be the guy known as the guy with one hand.
Yeah, pretty sure he hears that a lot.
Yes, he does. And he has a twin brother, Shaquille, who's played for the Seahawks for a year, and they played together at UCF. The draft really focused on them, and for a good reason. Quick backstory, and I won't go too long into this. They were twins. They were born. Shaquem had severe hand pain the first 4 years of his life, until the point they had to basically cut off all of his digits. So he has no left hand. That hasn't stopped him at all. Clearly, he won AAC Defensive Player of the Year this last season. He was a wrecking force for the defense. Certainly came up huge in the Peach Bowl against Auburn.
Yeah.
He has been a key player. He was drafted 5th round, 141st overall, to the Seattle Seahawks. That is the same team his twin brother plays for.
That's a really cool story. That is really cool.
It's amazing. You and I have our opinions about Pete Carroll.
Yep.
But good for him to take this opportunity to draft him. To give him a shot, to let them be together, to let them succeed together, as I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
So what a story there. It's incredible. I know there's a lot of documentaries and a lot of material out there you can check out. And I encourage you to, because these guys are just pure role models. No other way around it.
Yeah, that's good for them. I'm glad they got that.
Yes. So good for another school in the state of Florida. They also did have a couple other guys that were drafted as free agents, like Jemias Pittman, Tony Garrard, Aaron Evans, and Jordan Franks. All were signed as free agents.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, good. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to take this moment here. Next segment is going to call. I'm going to talk about all the first round draft picks from Miami. Okay, that was fun. Next segment.
Yeah, the Hurricanes did not produce this year. What's going on?
You figure the season they had, they would.
Right.
But nobody.
I think the only guy they had their hanging their hat on was Barrios.
Yeah.
And
their first guy that they got picked was like in the 3rd round or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm shocked because they had a really pretty good season until like the end. The wheels fell off, but I was shocked to not hear their players drafted.
It's crazy, Florida State's outdone them in the draft. I'm not going to take any opportunity to pass that comment up. But yeah, to produce, and of all things, they were, running back known, or they were linebacker known, like Wilson Gahey or guys like that. Reed, and you just don't see it now. You don't see any guys that are name brand. Any guys like, they should go 1st round, and I'm shocked too.
Yeah, I guess they're too busy making their turnover chain to get drafted.
A lot of spray paint goes into those,
I
guess.
But good for them. I'm glad they have that jewelry. That's so nice.
It looks gaudy, but there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Miami, a little work to do there. UCF, probably, arguably success for draft. And then not Dolphins, good God, the Hurricanes. I was thinking of the Dolphins. Jemias Pittman was drafted by them, so it was a Freudian slip. My apologies.
Hey, it's all right.
All right, that was good, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about UCF. That's something that a lot of people in the state of Florida probably have some thoughts on. Florida State fans probably don't put a lot of emphasis on the success they've had this season because recruiting-wise, probably not a whole lot of fear drawn from the success they've had. Yeah. But if you continue to put guys in the NFL, which is probably what most very successful players coming out of high school really want, then long term, this could be something you're going to really have to struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I think we overall, as a Florida State fan base, we're really happy about this. Some guys could have gone higher. We would have liked to have seen the number a little higher than 6 as total draft. What do you think, at least from your perspective, Florida fan base is going to take away from the draft?
We'll be happy that we got the guys drafted that we did, especially the first and second round. And I think we're just itching to get more talent on the offensive side, because most of the last few years it's been defense. And we're just like, okay, great. Let's get some offensive talent now. But we're happy. I think we should be really happy of who we got and where we got them.
Sure. And I mean, both of our teams didn't meet expectations this season. And I think even pointing to the draft in a season like this is something to really say, for recruits coming in, take a look at the success we've had.
Right.
Take a look at the guys we put in the NFL draft, the guys that make their money. So if that's the end goal, which for a lot of people it is, then there you go. That's a big selling point.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, there we go. That's for our Florida fans, and a little corner for our UCF Knights out there. We appreciate the listen today. We've talked a lot about things today, Chris. The draft is always a good recap. For the NFL fans out there, we appreciate the tune-in because we know that you have a lot of thoughts on the players you're about to get. But for the people that want to give us some feedback, how can they reach out to us so they can send those comments in?
All right, we have many ways to reach us. Probably the best way, our website, floridafocuspodcast.libsyn.com. That is Libsyn, Libsyn. Also, Facebook and YouTube at Florida Focus Podcast, Twitter at Florida Focus Pod, and please feel free to email us with at FloridaFocusPodcast@yahoo.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the draft, where your team's players went, what's your favorite NFL team and how you think they did. And kind of just let us know what your typical draft day or days experience is like. We'd like to hear about you.
Yeah, I agree. How do you approach it? And I appreciate those comments as well. So that's awesome. Thank everybody for the listen. We appreciate you finding us. If you found us on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating. We'd appreciate that. Any other way, we appreciate the feedback. As I've mentioned before, Chris and I are working on some incentives and prizes for people that reach out to us and give their reviews and comments. So we appreciate those coming in, and we welcome them more. Any other thoughts, Chris, before we sign off?
No, that's it. We'd definitely love to hear you. And also, just a side note, let us know through email. Email us and let us know what is the best way that you listen to the podcast, or what platform do you use? Do you use it on the way to work, at work, around the house? We'd like to hear about that stuff so we can serve you better.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. If you want to throw in how you're listening to us, that would help us also to improve the way that you experience the show.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate the tune in. You guys have a great day.